Now, the developer of a proposed wind farm near Baltinglass has confirmed its plans to press ahead with the project. ABO Wind Ireland Limited said this week it's set to lodge an application with Wicklow County Council for permission to construct 565-metre wind turbines at Kilranelagh. The plan has already been the focus of sustained local opposition due to what's said to be archaeological features on the site. Now, let's talk to Paul Carberry from the West Wicklow Wind Action Group. Hello to you, Paul.
Hi, Declan.
Good morning to you. So, just to remind us about your concerns about this.
Okay, well, the site for the proposed planning application is known as Kilranelagh Hill, which is in the centre of what's known internationally as the Baltinglass Hill Fort Complex, which is a group of protected monuments and hill forts, of which is internationally known as probably the only landscape of its type left in Europe. So it's quite a sensitive site. So that's the location. Our problem with this is not with renewable energy itself, is basically that the siting and the choice of this site it beggars belief for a start, but it's certainly totally inappropriate.
And if it is protected, I mean, how can the developers not think that they're wasting their time?
Well, it is protected, but the protection isn't absolute. It's mentioned in the county development plan as a significance, and there's also envisaged in the county development plan that they would do further investigations, which they have started, in fairness to them. They've started to dig and date. They've dated it now as 6000 BC, older than the Boyne Valley. They're starting to find and list more monuments. In fact, even over the last couple of months, there's been another 3 discovered. So the discoveries are ongoing. There's huge excitement in the archaeological movement that people really are excited about this, saying that it is more significant now than anywhere else in Ireland, and even than the Boyne Valley. It has a number of solstice alignments. It has sight lines from hill fort to hill fort. It's over quite area, so if the location was to go ahead on Kilranelagh Hill, it would have ramifications for the whole landscape, which is interconnected through all the sight lines. So in that way, Declan, it's very sensitive, and obviously there's a huge amount of people now. Like this appeared in America last week. It was written about in the Irish Echo. It went out to all 50 states, where people there, there's an opinion piece concerned about what might happen in Ireland on the Baltinglass Hill Fort Complex. So it's certainly a worry for a lot of us over here, particularly and unfortunately because ABO Wind decided to apply for planning permission in the middle of a level 5 lockdown, which has really angered the community here. They just feel that their citizens' rights are being ignored, and the whole process of public consultation isn't in the spirit of what it was designed to be.
So tell us, I mean, the height should be no problem. I mean, these things are in the ground, right? So yeah. It's the mess up on the ground is the problem. So what damage would 5 turbines do to the ground around there?
Well, you're going into a landscape. Most of it hasn't been excavated at this stage. So, I mean, they're rushing now to date sites in here. The damage that you could do here would be just catastrophic. I mean, it would be similar to what happened in on Woodkey. It would be similar to going into the Boyne Valley with bulldozers and diggers and starting to tear the place asunder. You know, every one of these turbines will take an Olympic swimming pool size of concrete. You know, every one of them has to have a road torn into it. The banks would have to be torn off the hill. I mean, you're talking about here not only ground damage, but river stream damage. Really, that on top of that, really compounded would be the height at 185 metres to the tip of the blade, with numerous solstice sun alignments. You know, we like going in and putting wind turbines in beside the solstice alignments in Newgrange. It would have the same effect. You wouldn't dream of it, Declan, to be honest with you, and that's why we're in shock. We cannot believe. Because at the start, this company said they didn't see any problematic archaeological significance in here. They have since changed and reconsidered and brought down the amount of turbines. But they have never considered the damage that even one of these would do to that landscape. You know, Ireland has a few real treasures, you know, and you can count them really on one hand, a few real national and international treasures. This is clearly one of them. And Wicklow County Council are on their way, and I believe they will They will nail this down properly in the new county development plan. But in the meantime, unfortunately, and as you said to me at the start, it is protected, but it's not protected enough to stop the application. The trouble with these applications is they more than likely will be turned down by the county council. But it goes out of the county council's hands when it goes on to Bord Pleanála. And on Bord Pleanála have been known to make extraordinary decisions, and that's our real concern at the moment.
Who owns the land?
The land
Apart
is
from
one,
we own the
one
land,
single landowner. So on a community, community scale, you know, you can't say that there's multiple people going to benefit from this. It'll be one single landowner. We have deliberately not mentioned the landowner. We've never even brought the landowner into debate, Declan, because really this is not the landowner. The landowner has signed what they call an option, which means their hands are tied. Even if they wanted to, you know, say that, God, we made a mistake, we want to retract from this, they can't. Unfortunately, it's a single German company here that are pushing this agenda, and that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, well, I suppose pushing their agenda is the same for them as they're doing what they do. They go to hills and they put up wind turbines when we're trying to, you know, reduce the amount of fossil fuels that we import into Ireland. Is there an alternative that they could look at?
I accept that, Declan. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the climate change agenda is a serious agenda. I mean, there's nobody here in West Wicklow that denies that. But, I mean, what we're all saying here is it's very simple, really. You know, there's the Paris Agreement that every country signed up to. That agreement was signed by, including Ireland, to agree to targets, which are all around CO2s and emissions. Nobody signed that agreement that we will go in and destroy the heritage and the landscapes of Ireland. That was not the spirit in which it was done. So it's imperative particularly on the government, and I would take this away from the county council, because in fairness to the county councils and in fairness to Wicklow County Council, they have tried to do their best on this, and I know they will do more on it. But it's really down to national policy here. We need a new renewable energy strategy, and we need it fast, because you know, the industry now is driving the agenda on this, where it is a national agenda and it needs to be considered. There's all sorts of options, Declan. There's multiple options, and we need to sit down and look at them. But in the meantime, sites like the Baltinglass Hillfort Complex, it's just simple. We're all on the one hymn sheet. We all agree with climate change, but we don't agree with picking inappropriate sites and letting a developer tell us what's right, because it's simply not.
Yeah, you seem to be veering into, you know, the debate about climate change on it by saying, oh, this, you know, this agenda is being pushed here and there, and governments getting involved and things like that. Aren't we just talking about a site on this occasion? And if these were moved to a different site that didn't have the historic implications, would that be fine?
You're right, Declan. But every site, you know, on its merits. The difficulty with this site is that it's available by its nature because it hasn't been fully protected. So it's not fully protected, but it's inappropriate. So unfortunately, the decision has come down to the local people here have to waste their time, energy, and money in impressing on people that this is not appropriate. So you're correct in a way. So it's back to what I did say, though. The renewable energy strategy needs to go back and look at itself, because it was put together in a bit of a hurry. And it needs to be considered, as any industrial technology needs to be considered. You know, whether we're putting up an office block, a tower, or a factory, we need to consider the appropriate nature, and that's it. And we're not arguing anything else here. But
if we talked about a different site, would this be an issue?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different sites, Declan. I mean, you have to go and see the people that live there and talk to them and see how they feel. You'll find that there has been some offshore development, which I don't know the ins and outs. I'm not qualified to say the appropriateness of it, but there certainly is places that the industry seems to be moving itself. I think the industry appears to be migrating towards offshore. That's what I can see at the moment in that industry. They seem to be thinking themselves, if you see what's happening in Germany now, particularly the home of the wind industry, they've had enough of land-based wind at this stage. Scotland is similar, France is similar. They've all had enough of it because they're realising the disturbance that this has brought to the general countryside has been more than it's worth, and there is ways. It's like every technology. As it starts, it develops, but it also develops new policies around it. We're waiting on new guidelines for the wind development industry. They're a long time overdue. I suspect when they come out, Declan, places like the Baltinglass Hillfort complex will be completely out of bounds.
All right, we'll keep in touch about it. Just wondering, when you were saying about countries moving to the sea and all that, I just wonder how Austria and Switzerland manage. You know, do they have similar debates?
Well, Austria and Switzerland are extremely lucky in their hydro. I mean, they have hydro that, you know, you mean the water coming from the Alps there, which hydro, so it's less disturbing, and certainly they have met a lot of their commitments through hydro. So, you know, it's different horses for different courses.
Okay, different argument. Yeah. Very good. Good to talk to you. Keep in touch, Paul. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you,
Take care. That's Paul Carberry there from the West Wicklow Wind Action Group on The Morning Show.